Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I've got a special video. I'm going to be debating and discussing a number of key topics in Splinterlands with Tales from the Crypt Mancer. And he's one of my favorite channels on YouTube right now and on Twitch, covering this amazing blockchain-based video game. We talk about bot farms. We talk about why they're a problem. Are they in some cases not a problem? We talk about the new rank rewards. We talk about validator nodes. We talk about the past and the future for this amazing game. And it's just jam-packed. So make sure you stick around, stay tuned, like and subscribe, and be sure to check out his channel also. Or he's also on Twitch at SplinterlandsTV on Saturdays from, I think he said 11 to 1 in the morning. Okay, so check out the details in the description. Have an amazing day. God bless. Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I am joined by a special guest. Tales from the Crypt Mancer is with me, and we're going to talk about all things Splinterlands. Tales, do you want to introduce yourself? And I'm sure most people are going to know, but tell them who you are and you're interested in this game. Give them a little bit of the background.
Sure, thanks Dwayne. It's definitely an honor and a privilege to be on here with you today because you're the reason I'm playing Splinterlands today. So it's definitely coming full circle. And so for those that don't know me, I have been playing Splinterlands since August of last year and have been creating content pretty much since that time as well.
Awesome. And you're on YouTube and on Twitch, right?
That is correct, yep. And also on SplinterlandsTV on Saturday nights from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern.
11 to 1 Eastern, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And on Twitch, do you have your own channel on Twitch? And then also you do the Splinterlands TV on Twitch?
Yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not really, I've got an account on Twitch, but I'm not really operating my own stuff over there. I'm just doing the 2 hours on Friday nights with the Splinterlands TV, which, guys, if you're checking out this video and you're maybe new to my channel or you didn't know this, but Splinterlands TV is blowing up and there's a lot of great content creators that are just creating excellent conversations and learning guides and everything in between on this amazing blockchain-based video game. So come hang out on pretty much any time throughout the week. Okay, so Tales, you wanted to get into a few things today. We both had some ideas about what we might talk about today. For anybody that doesn't know your channel, I'll say in advance, like I watch your channel regularly, probably almost every day. And, you know, especially around recently, the bots and the win trading and some of the kind of the red flags you've been raising, I think are pretty interesting. And I'd love to get into that later today. I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit about that stuff because sounds like you've done some really deep dives on that data and looked into, you know, specific examples. I saw that one video, I think today or maybe yesterday, about the, you found one bot that had like won 20 in a row, and they were all, every single one of the 20 games was a clear win trade situation. So that's an important topic, and I think there might be some interesting, actual, possibly easy implemented solutions. So definitely let's go there today. But I think it'd be maybe best to, you were wanting to talk about the economy and kind of where we came from. Let's start there because I want to go also into rank rewards and more. So I want to defer to you because you actually had a question that you wanted to start here with on the economy. You wanted to hear about my past or something. Can you rephrase the question for the video?
Yeah, so I think what's interesting is there's a lot of new players in Splinterlands that were not here like prior to Untamed. And so, you know, when we have the crypto market in its current state and we have a lot of uncertainty and doubt in the community, you know, I think it's good to have a perspective of, you know, from someone who's been here a long time, has seen kind of the ups and downs in the game, and also, you know, can talk about that because for a lot of us, this is kind of our first time through the Splinterlands cycles. And when I was doing research on the game and talking to other players that have been around like yourself for a while, what I found reassuring was kind of some of the details around how like beta went, how Untamed went, kind of the ups and downs, because it's not unheard of to see kind of the card declines in price and the cheap cards in the current cycle, I think. And then also, you know, there is a point where I think it'll turn, like maybe around 70 or 80% of Chaos Legion packs being sold, where you start to see that uptick. Similar with the reward cards when they go out of print. So I think it's hard to, for those who haven't really experienced it, like myself, we have to take it on faith that that's going to happen and that's going to be something that's going to recur. But there has been a lot of history there, and maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, I thought this was a great starting point for us today because I think it's going to segue well. First of all, I think you and I might have some different, from my knowledge of your channel, I think we might have some conflicts around like how we think reward cards will be handled, or the Chaos Legion issuance, and maybe whether it's too big or too small, even maybe what the bots are going to do as the rank reward, the ghost card, the rank reward changes come with the ghost card nerfs. I think we've got some interesting, maybe some friction, which is great. Like, it's good to have that back and forth and kind of the competing ideas. So hopefully we can get into some of that, but I'll start with definitely answering the question. I think kind of the history of what I've seen and what I've come through. I think I feel like it's a complex, there's so many broad strokes I could get into, but I almost think the important notes from like the history of what I've seen through the economy and my investing within the game, it kind of comes down to the fact that, starting first with the understanding, even as a few months into the game, recognizing that the rewards I was receiving were non-fungible tokens and that they were limited in number, and that this limited number boded well for the future price appreciation due to what we all know is happening in the fiat currency world. Every country, America, Canada, every single one of them is running a fiat currency, which means that they just print it as they see fit, and they don't stop. There's never enough. There's always like some new social program, and all this spending goes somewhere. It actually means that there are more. It actually means that there are more units of currency chasing after the same number of limited goods. And that's why we see gasoline prices go up, and why we see housing prices go up, and why we see non-fungible token prices go up. Especially ones where they have utility, like in a game like Splinterlands, where we see a fun game that people enjoy playing, and then that utility of that card that can generate revenue within the game, that was special to me. And so that was the beginning of all of it, recognizing that world economy problem and the implications for non-fungible tokens specifically. At the time, I wouldn't have known what that was. I would have just said to you, look, these cards, there's only so many of them. But now I recognize them as non-fungible tokens, and I recognize them as limited in number. In fact, not just limited in number, but deflationary in nature, because there's always some being printed. And so out of that, like, just play and attraction to the game grew. And I started to then go deeper and deeper into my understanding of the economic implications of that. And I'd get a card here or there that was worth so much money. I remember, I've said it before, I got a Ruler of the Seas legendary gold foil, which at the time was worth 60 or $100, and the videos on my YouTube channel. And it's like, I remember thinking, wow, like, I just played this game for fun, and I got that in my rewards. Like, I think it was a season reward for like gold or silver level play. And I thought, like, this is really, really significant. And that day I got like $100 worth of rewards, including that card. And so I just poured myself into it. And then yes, Untamed came along, and there was 1.5 million packs of Untamed. And that's when I recognized, that's when I went like all in. At this moment, I had other cryptocurrencies, and I had other interests, but I just took all of that money. And this was like my life savings, by the way. Like, I saved up quite a bit of money for me, and I took it all and put it into crypto. Then it ended up here in Splinterlands within like a year and a half of being within crypto. We were entering a bear market, and I just started I ended up buying Untamed packs aggressively with all of my money, because I really, like I just outlined, I thought that they were going to appreciate due to their limited number.
And just for reference, Rain, I mean, how long ago was that? Like, when you say you're buying Untamed packs, I mean, that wasn't that long ago, right?
No, I think Untamed packs, if I recall correctly, I want to say they sold out in like maybe August or September of 2021, and I think I often look this up. When did Untamed packs go on sale? I don't remember this information, but I often look it up. Sold out. Oh, they sold out in June 2021, according to Clove. But I forget the exact date that they launched, but it was my involvement in the game might be, let's look at my league here. So this is my first account ever, Infidel 1258, and doesn't it show you? Yeah, January 2019 is when I started playing, and so I probably had a year and a half access to Untamed. but I didn't start buying it right away. Or whenever Untamed went on sale, I probably had at least a year of access to Untamed, but it wasn't right away that I started going deep, because it wasn't really right away that I understood what I was dealing with. And then, like I've pointed out on the channel before, what I was seeing is that DEC was depegging, and it was at right now it's almost exactly peg value. 1,000 DEC equaling $1 US, but at the time it was 650 DEC equaling. No, hang on, that's the wrong way. It was 600. It was 65 cents equaling 65 US cents was equaling 1,000 DEC, and so what that was meaning is that there was these arbitrage. Hang on, is that the right word? I keep getting this confused. Arbitrage, yes, arbitrage plays where you could buy DEC for cheap, and I was funneling all my crypto into DEC for the purposes of then going to Hive Engine, buying Untamed packs, just like we see today with Chaos Legion. People were selling Untamed packs on the marketplace for less than face value, and you could do that. But you could also get your DEC here and then come into Splinterlands and do the arbitrage play and buy from them. And so I feel like it's a long winding tale, but it got serious when Untamed was active, because of all of that kind of story of what I believed was happening in the economy and how I felt it was going to continue to go. Does that answer the question? I feel like it's only maybe scratches the surface.
Well, I think it does, because I think what it shows is, I mean, obviously you do it over again and do it even more so, right? And maybe at the time, to your point, it didn't seem like the right thing to do, or maybe you were just doing it because the game was fun. But definitely from an investment perspective, it worked out for you, I would say. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when I keep going over the stories from a lot of the players that played in that time. What resonates with me is that, they said, well, it took 6 months for alpha to sell out, a year for beta to sell out, a year and a half for Untamed to sell out. And each of those cycles had similar price and market things, like you were talking about the arbitrage with DEC and packs.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it happening again in Chaos Legion. And your video today was interesting for me because you talked about, it was from SplinterlandsTV, where you talked about the Kraken being a reward, being sold for like $1 or whatever, a legendary reward card. And we know how good that card is. And everyone would want that card in their deck today, but they can't afford it. And we're getting the same card today. We're getting Jin Oceanus, right? I mean, it is that much of a meta card if you look at the stats and the impact that Oceanus has with Force Field and the speed and the Void. I mean, it's just so good. And, that same thing is happening today, and we just don't realize it because we see the market and we see Oceanus is under $2 or whatever, and we just kind of take it for granted.
Yeah.
But when I hear these consistent stories, what makes me hopeful as a newer player that's never experienced that Untamed, pickup in value and assets is that we'll see that again for us Chaos Legion players as well.
Yeah, that was one element of the question. I kind of got bogged down in like how I got excited and also like what I saw. But then I guess it's important for me to say on the back of what you just said there, echoing that, I feel strongly, and I think it's a crux of my YouTube channel's, my whole thesis is that I feel very strongly that the opportunities that existed before exist again in different ways. And of course, they're not going to be precisely the same, and maybe the magnitude is going to be slightly different, as we've seen with, like, for instance, Bitcoin. It's important to understand that the risk is never greater in an investment than when the thing has just begun. And so when Splinterlands was launching and I was playing the game and there was 1,000 or 2,000 people playing the game, daily active accounts, the risk would have been greater at that moment. And that's the window in which I was buying Untamed packs. Like, there was still only about 3,000 people playing the game on a daily average basis, and maybe upwards of 5,000 on like a good day. And so compared to the 400,000 daily active accounts now, and I know the whole bot question is maybe well, let's get there later, but just the fact that's a small segment of the population, really, like a trivial. And so, and yet, so the risks were higher there, and probably therefore magnitude of growth was potentially greater. But I feel so strong that that the opportunities still stand for life-changing wealth with this amazing game, because I think Chaos Legion, even though there's 10x packs, Chaos versus Untamed, are going to sell out. We're already at 8.5, I think, and the other day we saw 100,000 packs sell. I don't know what was up with that, and like we talked before the video, I'm really curious to hear if you have any sort of speculation on why that would have happened in a single day. I also am interested in the conversation around how the DEC, Yaba is talking about linking, allowing us to buy packs for 4,000 DEC again, which again is that arbitrage play that I described a moment ago that used to exist with Untamed. And so I think we're going to see there's all kinds of people owning DEC right now, having enjoyed the SPS airdrops, but that segment of the population, I think, is now going to move into buying Chaos Legion packs. Because why? Well, one thing, their DEC really fell off in price. For two, they've got millions and millions of DEC, and the packs are going to give you airdrop opportunities, whereas the cards themselves in the marketplace don't. Obviously, you just get certain cards, you don't get any sort of airdrop opportunity. And then lastly, because I think we're actually going to see DEC go below peg. And so I think you're not going to be able to sell the DEC on the marketplace for kind of like 1,000 equaling $1. And because of how Splinterlands operates, we're going to be able to do that through Splinterlands. So that, to me, all of those factors I quickly rattle off are going to be reasons and they're going to be reasons, and they're going to have implications for why Chaos Legion will act similarly. If perhaps slightly different in magnitude, it'll act similarly in its appreciation that as how Untamed did. That's kind of my thesis, and I wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack there, Dwayne.
Yeah.
Like, literally, we could spend an hour just talking about those topics. But let me start with, so like you mentioned, we're already over, 8.5 million packs. So we're definitely well past 50% of the Chaos Legion packs sold in about 6 months. And remember, the goal for all the packs that the company has stated has been last a year. And I honestly think we're not going to last a year here for Chaos Legion. We lasted a year and a half for Untamed, and we saw what happened there. But there's a couple of reasons why, and we'll talk about that in a second. But to your other question around, that 100,000 packs, well, I mean, it honestly could have been, I haven't checked the top holders for the packs to see what account those got shifted to, if there was a centralized account. But it's quite possibly could be a guild, getting into the game as another buy. But I don't know. I haven't researched it, so I couldn't say for sure.
Yeah.
But I did see it happen, and it's definitely a positive sign. Because 100,000 packs is no joke. That's without discounts. That's $400,000, and the current market is definitely not chump change. Yeah. And what I would say is, as well, if we look at the history, there's big changes coming, and I talked about it in some of my videos with a new rank reward system where there could be a very strong incentive to open up more Chaos Legion packs more quickly because of the rental market and the bots and some of their change in behavior. So you've got that pressure happening to the Chaos Legion packs. You've got the legendary summoners being unveiled with their stats and their mana and how that might change the meta for airdrops and other things associated with that. And then you've got the DEC news, which was just dropped a couple of days ago. I think it was yesterday or the day before. I forget, it all kind of blurs together right now. But that's big news because they talked about it. Matt and Aggie had talked about it on town halls and said, hey, we're thinking about after the airdrop ends, putting the stable pegging DEC at its value and reinforcing it with Splinterlands assets. Yeah. And when the market dropped and the DEC went below peg just the other day, I think it was like at 0.8 or so, as low as it's got, they came back and reinforced and said, hey, reassuring the market, kind of like the Fed would do, in the United States, for example, and say, hey, we've got your back. Yeah. We're going to, in a couple days, we're going to switch it over so you can buy Chaos Legion packs, at peg value. And that's huge because it reinforces, obviously there's a good track record with the developers on what they say, what they're going to do, and they do what they're going to say. Yeah. But by them saying, hey, it's going to be in the game and you're going to see it and we're doing it, that means a lot because you can see automatically, well, I mean, DEC is back over peg as of today. Yeah. And, I wish I had more DEC I could have put in to the game just in the last 48 hours because it's a no-brainer. Not only are you getting, I got the 20% uplift from going from 8.80 to peg, but now you're getting the double airdrop points on the SPS airdrops until the SPS airdrop ends. And then at that time, I'm going to be able to turn all that DEC into Chaos Agent packs. And I know that to be the case because I've done the math on how much DEC is out in the ecosystem, and it's not going to necessarily sell out Chaos Agent packs.
Oh, cool. That's really cool. That's really cool to know. Can you just, I didn't know that. So can you just touch on that one more time so that anybody who isn't aware of that can hear that?
Yeah, so there's a video on my channel that talks about DEC, like a deep dive into DEC. And I took all the circulating supply and liquidity pools and everywhere that I could find to understand how much DEC was out in the marketplace, right? Because there's a question, because the DEC is algorithmic, there's a lot of DEC printed over the last 6 months.
Yes.
Or probably the last 8-9 months because of the SPS airdrop, where it was increased printing, right? Because it was trying to get back to peg.
Yep.
And I wanted to see how much of that was actually out there. And when you do the math, it's certainly like a couple million. I think it's like 6 to 8 million. I forgot the exact number. The video was done a while ago. But even when you translate that into Chaos Legion packs coming in to the game, there's a certain watermark in the video that talks about there has to be this many packs available for you to buy everything out with DEC. So in its current state, there's not a worry of that right now. Now, if the Chaos Legion packs start selling like hotcakes, between now and July, then we have to reevaluate and look at the number again. But what it means to me, what I looked at it and I said, hey, if my time horizon is I don't need to touch that DEC until the airdrop ends, let's say at the end of July.
Yep.
And I'm going to immediately turn that into Chaos Legion packs. Basically, I'm just pushing that Chaos Legion pack investment down the road, and I'm getting a ton of SPS in the meantime. And for me, via the airdrops, I was like, this is a no-brainer. And this is what the beauty of the game is. Not only is the game fun to play as a game, right? But you can do these things. You can look at the market. And if you were to ask me just, a week and a half ago if I would be putting a lot of money into DEC, I'd say no because, yes, it's still profitable with the APR and stuff, but it wasn't a slam dunk play because it was still at that point in time 20% above peg. As soon as it drops below peg, the whole value equation changes. And those that are in tune with the market and the data can take advantage of that. And it's not a game that everyone wants to play, but if you play it, what it does, it becomes a game within a game. So like, how can I ramp up my assets in Splinterlands the fastest? Or kind of min-max that asset accumulation? And for me, that's kind of interesting. So it's kind of like a game within the game that I play. And it's,
I agree.
Like if I'm renting my deck out right now for end of season to get some extra DEC to buy cards or whatever, if I'm not playing the game, well, I can do other things in the market. I can flip cards. I can do these other things. That for me is entertainment. So
I agree. It's like, and I think I heard, I don't know, Yava or Aggie. So I think it might have been Yava say recently in last town hall. He was there. I'm just going to throw on this game in the background just for a little something to look at. But Yaba was saying like the economy is the game within the game, and I totally agree. And I used to play Diablo 2. Diablo 2, and then Diablo 3. And Diablo 3 used to have a marketplace, an in-game marketplace where you could buy and sell assets. And that was one of the games that was really pivotal for me to understand the power of what blockchain is doing, because it ultimately helped me understand that like when I actually own these assets that I'm earning through playing a game, my financial life can change while I'm entertaining myself. And I would spend half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening on Diablo 3 during using the marketplace, like just navigating. I'd get up early 4 a.m. because there would be some sort of listings that would be really, really inexpensive. Maybe bots were throwing them up online. I don't know how it worked, but I would always around 3, 4 a.m. I would find great deals and I could relist them for sale, profit, like do a flip, and in that way, actually financially benefit potentially in the real world. Now, I never took any cash off the table with that game, but it was a game within the game, and it was ahead of its time. Like that's now available in Splinterlands as we play, as we earn non-fungible tokens that are ours to then rent or sell or use, and or even burn. Which interestingly, I did a video the other day about the burn mechanics of for instance, gladiator cards, which can't be rented or sold or given away, but you could burn them. And so there's the what's the word? The like sovereignty over our assets in this game is really interesting because it's so different than traditional video gaming. And that's why that's one of the main reasons why I'm so excited. Plus it's fun. Like I really believe this game is fun and entertaining, but it's also an opportunity. So yeah, man, I agree. I'm super interested to think that through, what you're just saying about the DEC and there being. I actually hadn't thought, like, what if there was too much DEC and not enough packs, but it clearly there was a satisfaction, or like people were satisfied by the announcement, I think, because you're right, the DEC was below peg and now it's not. And that tells me that people are like, okay, like we believe these guys. And I think interestingly, help me understand something that maybe I don't know. When the DEC goes, when we use DEC to give it to Splinterlands to buy packs, they then hold it as a profit, I think, right? That's not locked up in escrow or something. It's like their company profit, correct?
Yep, they own it. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, they own it. And from what Aggie has said, they've been using it for liquidity, or for using it when you buy credits in the game.
Yes.
To basically exchange DEC for credits.
Yeah.
Well, like if you use PayPal. So I mean, it provides liquidity, I think, and it's ultimately their money. So it's not being burned. So
that's one of the really interesting things about. Hang on. That's one of the really interesting things actually about Splinterlands in general. And you saw. This is a little bit change of topic. You saw recently the, what was it? Luna and the UST kind of crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of getting caught up on that, to be honest. But in my understanding of it, the one starts to fall. And then there was some sort of like, some sort of abusive attack or something. Whatever happened, the asset starts being sold, and then the sale creates like almost a chain effect
it's a death spiral.
Yes, a death spiral in the economy almost, because one coin goes down, the other goes down farther, and then the other coin panic sells even more, and then so on and so forth. But interestingly, within DEC, we almost see the opposite of that, where it was falling, and quite significantly, because not that long ago, DEC was 1.4, is it right? Not 1.4 cents, like close to 2/10 of a penny. Like this is 1/10 of a penny, I think, and like right there we're 2/10 of a penny on April 28th, and again April 25th, so like just a few weeks ago. So that's a pretty significant drop from like roughly 2/10 of a penny into less than 1/10 of a penny, less than peg. But just one kind of statement from the developer team just reassured, seemed to have speak calm into kind of what could have been chaos. And I think it's in part, I think it's in part because of their control over the assets that they can entice you with and say, hey, remember, we've got Chaos Legion packs, and we will always have sort of the next pack at some point in the future, which is really so key, because it then says to the people who are in the game who have that DEC, okay, they've got assets they can give me, I don't need to panic. Do you think is it that simple, or is there more to it? And do you have any extra thoughts on that comparison between DEC and UST?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's good that Splinterlands had essentially $28 million in assets to say, hey, we've got this backing our stable coin.
Yeah.
So don't worry, right? But here's the thing that happened with Luna is you could say that they got played by a bigger fish, right? So someone with more capital, more essentially funds to throw at them, and there's obviously going to be stories about what happened to Luna, and no one maybe will ever know. But with Splinterlands, we don't have that market manipulation because maybe we're a smaller niche segment, right? We don't have the eyes and attention on Hive that's on maybe like Ethereum and some of these other chains.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. And I think what a lot of people, again, take for granted with Splinterlands is, yes, development has been slow, but it's been slow and steady. We haven't had a lot of news, but hey, we haven't had our marketplace hacked. We haven't, like Axie had with their Ronin, where tons of money was stolen, right?
Yep.
And we haven't had the Luna experience. So sometimes boring and slow is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure Matt and the team have learned from the Luna experience, because if you remember just a couple of weeks ago, and this is how fast crypto changes, Matt was touting, Luna as an inspiration for some of the mechanics in the game coming up. So I'm sure they're looking at that and baking that into the land planning and other things like that and learning from it. And this is some of also the challenges that we have to realize as stakeholders essentially in Splinterlands that we take being on the cutting edge here is that there are going to be times where Splinterlands may be exposed to some risk just because Splinterlands is blazing trails in this play to earn ecosystem and they're doing things that no one else has done. Like how many games do you know in a play to earn perspective have a robust rental market like Splinterlands has? They're just not out there that are actually working. Now, of course, that's great for us as players today, but as we know with some of the bot discussions that in the videos that I've done, it also poses some risk as well to us. But so I would just say that in that perspective, we're definitely trailblazing here. There's going to be good times. There's going to be not so good times, but you have to ultimately have faith in the development team and what they show you. And I think that the team here has a good track record of doing things the right way.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking, let's see, we talked about the history of the economy and like why confidence, and then we spoke into like where that confidence then points us into the future of the Splinterlands ecosystem. We didn't exactly talk about the rank reward changes. We just kind of generally talked about Untamed versus Chaos. What about the new changes to the rank rewards and the ghost cards, and how do you think is that gonna be satisfactory? I think I know the answer to this from your perspective, but is that going to be satisfactory in terms of resolving this bot problem, the ghost card nerfs?
Yeah, so there's two things, right? So the first is defining what is the bot problem.
Good question.
And if you look at my videos, what I was doing is just trying to understand the data as an educated investor and player of this game. And the data kept taking me in different paths and directions, and it took a while to piece it all together. It took as you saw, 4 or 5 videos over a course of a week to really get the bigger picture of kind of where things are at. And I was giving that data in real time because I wanted to share it with the community, not only to get the community's input, but also just to share it in a timely fashion so everyone had, the information as I had it. And I think the interesting thing as I was going down that discovery is when we say the bot problem, I would say there's 2 potential problems that we should still consider and look at addressing either as a community or from a Splinterlands development perspective. The one problem is, just what it is, and that is if you look at some of my assumptions on the user base of the 400,000 daily active users, my guess is our actual real unique human player base in the game that actually brings money to the game into the ecosystem is probably somewhere between 20,000 and 100,000. Now, I would probably say it's, hopefully on the higher end, maybe that's 70 to 100,000 players, but it could be as low as 20,000. So keep that in mind. That means that the bots that exist in our game for a daily active user perspective is anywhere between 300,000 to 380,000 of our daily active users. And when you think about that from a macro perspective, it's probably quite terrifying if you really think about it, because it means the fate or the future of the game doesn't rely on you or me. It relies on the bots in a centralized fashion, because what the bots choose to do impacts you or I more so than what we choose to do. So that's why the ranked rewards changes had me so intrigued and looking into the topic, because I really wanted to understand and try and predict what might happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks, because is this something that I should be concerned about my investment, and is this game going to be sustainable? And that was really the question I was trying to get to, because anytime you have that much of a centralized force in a game that you can't control, or even the developers don't have any control over, it's kind of scary. But
go ahead. Go. No, sorry, please continue.
Yeah, and the second thing that I think is a problem is the win trading that the bots, not all bots, but some bots are certainly demonstrating, where they're simply exploiting the game and basically stealing DEC and rewards from myself and yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem. And I don't think there's any way you can say it's not a problem. But so those are kind of what I would say are the challenges with bots. Now going back to the first point, what I tried to do in one of my more recent videos was try and put on my hat as a bot owner or a bot farmer, right? That let's say I own 10,000 bots. What am I going to do in 2 or 3 weeks when the rewards change? And what are we seeing those bot farming accounts doing? And basically my hypothesis and conclusion after looking at the data, and this is obviously may not be what happens in reality because I don't have a crystal ball, but it looked like the bot owners and farms were not going to be buying cards. They were not buying Chaos Legion summoners en masse. They're actually selling Chaos Legion summoners where I could see. And they weren't hoarding Chaos Legion commons and rares to delegate to their bot farms. What they were looking at doing is just holding the course. And if we surmise that it will be still profitable for them to run in the future, starting in June, which we would probably say it would have to be a pretty bad scenario where they couldn't do that because they've paid for themselves many times over at this point. So they're basically free rolling, right? So as long as they're printing, like, even if it's 1 cent every hour, it still makes sense to have them on, basically, right?
Yeah.
So basically what I saw was about 100 DEC a day, depending on the time of season. It gets more expensive now, of course, at end of season. But they were willing to put that into rentals just to get the silver 3 and get the rewards. And when I did the calculations on what it would cost for them to rent summoners, 1 BSCX summoners, and just base Chaos Legion, common and rare starter decks, I mean, it's literally less than a penny a day at current rental rates. So the assumption is, yeah, those prices in the rental market may increase for rentals, but it shouldn't increase substantially enough where the bots would say, no, it's too expensive, because they're already paying over 100 DEC a day. And right now they can basically do it for less than 1 DEC a day to continue what they're doing and not really miss a beat. The other thing is that we know if they stay probably even at silver 3, where most of them farm, not all of them, but most of them, they're probably actually going to make more in rewards than they're making today. And they might even make more such that it makes sense for them to pay up and basically rent at the gold 3 level moving forward, because the rewards are such that it encourages them or incentivizes them to do so. So all of that made me feel better about the bots not essentially crashing the market and bursting a bubble necessarily, but continuing to play ball and being as Rogue from YGG had mentioned, they're kind of like worker ants or worker bees, farming stuff and performing a duty in the ecosystem that we as humans are taking advantage of.
Yeah.
And that went back to my correlation. Okay, let's assume that everything is good in the ecosystem with bots doing what they do. They farm, we consume, they give us cards that give us collection power. We rent the collection power to them. It's kind of like this, symbiotic cycle.
Yeah.
But what happens, as we add players to the game and the bots, let's say they stay the same. Well, we go to that. If you bring up that KyoKiz website, we see that there's only going to be 8 million Pelacor bandits in existence before they go out of print. And if we say that, for example, that the new standard for bots or even human players to attain to is gold 3, let's say for good rewards, well, 220 Pelacor bandits is what's required to get to a gold level for that card. And when you do the math, it comes out to be, I think, around 33 to 36,000 is the maximum number of those gold level bandits you could have before you run out of bandits.
Okay.
Now, if you go back to, this is why data is so important to me, because if you go back to the assumption of how many human players we have, well, we said we assume we have between 20 and 100,000. Now, if we're anywhere towards the upper end of that range today, without any player growth, right? If we just stop growing the game today, and we just printed rewards for the current player base, which is definitely obviously very enthusiastic about the game, well, if you're at 70,000 to 100,000 players, and you can only have 36,000 of these Pelacor bandits at the desired level for rewards to play, well, you have more demand than you have supply, which obviously leads to price appreciation. So that really just reassured me to look at the numbers and the data to say, yeah, there's a good chance that we're going to be okay here. And that was really more the exercise I was going through and sharing with my channel.
Yeah. I agree with a bunch of what you say, but I have a couple, I guess, topics to kind of explore more, maybe in greater depth. I like how you landed it, and I also appreciate, like, I was watching the video this morning talking about that one bot time, whatever, and how it was win trading 20 times in a row, and you were like, you made a comment, you specifically and explicitly said, like, this is not saying that all bots are bad, but clearly there are some that are abusing the system. And so I'd like to make that same kind of distinction. There are obviously bots that are I think as this information around win trading has kind of come more and more to the become more and more obvious, specifically with the bot farms. And if people don't know what that means, guys, like they have so many bots in their ecosystem of bots that they can actually trade in a manner that intentionally drives rank wins into the hands of bots with level 1 monsters that don't deserve to be winning, but because there's such an ecosystem of friendly bots, 99 of them are throwing to the one, and that allows the one to climb into higher levels. Is that a fair synopsis before I go any further there?
Yep.
Tails? Okay.
Definitely.
So with that in mind, that to me is a huge problem. But I also want to say, just like you said, it's not necessarily that bots are in and of themselves a problem. It's more that this sort of abuse and programming and exploit is a problem, because clearly that's not even an effort to play the game. That's not an effort to earnestly apply the techniques that this game requires in order to achieve victory. It's literally a gimmick, and it's an exploit, and it is stealing resources from the game. That's a problem. But there are so many ways that I think people like you kind of started the conversation. You're like, what is the bot problem? And I think so many people actually just say, like, ban bots because bots are bad. And it's like, that's so simplistic, and it's really important to me. My whole thesis on, like, approaching a game like Splinterlands is that there's so much nuance here and opportunity, and yes, risk. But by the way, risk isn't a bad word. It actually where there's risk, there's opportunity. And knowing that, and then bringing an intellectual mind, and like you said, like data centered, like, actively seeking data and trying to analyze thoughtfully what might happen. That's how one can actually position themselves wisely so that they might gain in the long run. And so, like, I like fumbling through these complex conversations in a way that's going to hopefully bring me a little closer to a better plan. And I think it's so simplistic when people say, not that you ever said this, but that there are a lot of people out there that say this, that just ban all the bots. Like, bots are a problem, just get rid of them. And it's like, you understand, like, the power of decentralization that is one of the core reasons why this game is cool in the first place. And the fact that through that you're attracting a certain audience, and that also that without that there was never an effort to provide ownership to players for their in-game assets, but through decentralization, but through blockchain. So it's like, it's almost like we've gotten this far and it worked really well, but now that I'm here, I want it all to stop being that way. And so, and I think bots, they provide certain services, like you pointed out, Rogue was saying, I don't know where he was speaking to those points, but it's like they're worker bees, and they often, they're collecting cards for no effort whatsoever, and then they're putting them on the market for prices that you or I just wouldn't. And then they're creating games that allow us to sometimes match. And then when we do match them, you often know it's a bot, and the bots are usually easier to beat than non-bots. So there's several reasons why they can be potentially beneficial to us as humans, but that doesn't mean that I would sign off on the abuses that I'm clearly now seeing. And so I think, like, talking through how we could deal with the exploits is interesting, but I also think it's important to say that the bots do bring something, because you kind of said earlier, bots don't bring anything to the table, or they don't spend anything. I forget the exact language you used, but I think I think I might disagree to some extent on that, because even you've pointed out before, like they come in and they rent X amount of cards at the end of the season in order to then satisfy the rank collection power requirements. Even that is a benefit to the ecosystem, and usually those cards are being rented by players who've been here and who have accumulated collection power, like myself. And so there are people that are benefiting, and maybe it's a minority of individuals. I don't know how many accounts are renting, and maybe that's evidence we could track down, and then you might be able to say, oh look, it's only 50 accounts or 100 accounts that are benefiting. That's all worth pulling on, the thread that's probably worth pulling on. But my point is just, if they are taking money and investing it into the rental economy, that then helps people like me or others that are out there renting cards at the end of the season, to then reinvest in new cards, that's one more way that the bot system is actually helping real world players and actually helping the economy of Splinterlands. And to the point where I would say, yes, again, where the abuse exists, let's do something about that. And I think I've heard you and I've heard others give some really interesting ways that we might deal with those exploits. But I do think that they're providing benefit, and I think even this rental cost they're dumping on the system. I think I heard you do a video recently. Maybe you'll remember the numbers better than I do, but I feel like you said that one account you found like one network of bots, and I think you said they're renting X millions worth of CEP. I forget how many. Does that ring a bell? And do you know how much how much collection power they would have been renting?
Quite a bit. I mean, it's 15,000 per bot account, and some of these bot farms are 20,000 deep. So you can do the math there.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking at the Splinterlands Discord now, because they do have an automated bot, ironically enough, called Dollar Rental, which shows you the actual number of active rentals and the daily amount. So I push back a little bit as a devil's kind of advocate point of view, because as of looks like this was last run on May 11th, so 2 days ago. So in the rentals for May 11th, there was 1.67 million cards rented that day, but the dollar generated for that day in rentals was $5,815. So that's basically, if you say the bots are maybe contributing maybe 90% of that into the game on a daily basis. Let's say it's $5,000 on a daily basis that bots are putting into the game.
Yep.
You have to also look at how much they're extracting. And until you actually look at the data, when I say extracting, I mean how much they're farming and then just selling.
Yeah.
Because they're not making $5,000 in rentals a day, because if they did that, they wouldn't be making money. So they're making profit. And if you look at some of the data that I saw, even at $0.015 per common card on the market, if you just see the magnitude of how many cards they're farming, until you actually see the data, wow, you just don't realize what's going on there. So yes, they are performing a service. Yes, it's benefiting renters to some degree, but you also have to realize that the owners of these bot farms, yes, they maybe took on some risk and some capital expenditures up front, but they are basically printing money on this game, which is fine. I think we all would want to be in that case if we could, right? But here's where the devil's advocate argument is. And I'm not saying it's a problem, it's just a reality.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it in one of my videos, is if this was the way the game was supposed to work, meaning that this is how the game's played, then you or I would be able to go into the Splinterlands store and buy a spellbook that costs $10,000 or $1,000 or $100,000 and print the same amount of value on a daily reward basis that the bots are doing. And we don't have that, and we're never going to have that. Aggie's never going to put the Mystical Tome of Knowledge in there for $10,000, even if it makes Splinterlands money, because it just extracts value at an enormous rate. And it doesn't make sense for the game necessarily. But the bots are doing it, essentially. And yes, they're putting a marginal piece of rental income back into the game to continue the process. But the question is how much are they extracting? Again, not to say it's a problem or an exploit. It's built into the game. It's just not something that you or I can do as a human. And Aggie's always said in concept, the key word being, and I'm putting air quotes out there, concept, bots should never have an advantage
Yeah.
over humans.
And that's where
And
the
this is
exploit,
definitely an advantage.
that's where the language around potentially what is an exploit, and we need to maybe if we kind of fine tune that term and exploit it, because there's certainly for me a big line in the sand is when trading between a network of friends is an exploit. There's no two ways about it. That needs to be somehow stopped. And I think for the record, for anybody who doesn't maybe follow the town halls as closely as you or I actually think they're already implementing things. I think the I've heard a lot of talk around how they can implement like a 15-second window for the rule sets, because if you guys don't know the game super well, every sort of battle has a set of rules that apply to this battle. And how it currently works is every single battle has a randomized rule set, a randomized mana cap. But if they just went through and they said, for this next 15 seconds, we're going to have all matches in the game have these specific rule sets. Right here we have Silent Summoners and Holy Protection, and we're going to have 32 mana for all battles in the next 15-second window. That would make it really hard for a network of bots to determine whether bot 1 was playing bot 2 or Dwayne Cunningham was playing bot 1. Because that would restrict their ability to scrape data from the blockchain, thereby verifying I am throwing bot 1 under the bus so that bot 2 can benefit. And I think that seems quite logical to me, also quite possible, easy to implement, and that might be a really meaningful way to start to at least pick at this problem that I see, because I do see a big problem in this. I think that is a significant bot problem. But then I do think you maybe again kind of seem to and this is this is really why I thought this would be a fruitful conversation, because you have very thoughtful views, and I can tell that you've thought these things through. But then we do kind of diverge on some of the nuance around this stuff. So that's why I really enjoy this. I hope it's clear to you that I'm not like
oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, good. But yeah, like around these specifically, I think it's not like you kind of said. I think you kind of, to be fair, I hope you don't think this is an unfair analysis of what you said, but I feel you trivialize the amount of money that $5,000. I think you said it was $5,000. You speculated $5,000 that worth of rental cost going into the market. I would argue that's really consequential, because that's going into the hands of certain players, actual human beings that are likely the ones that have collected cards. And I would also argue that the card discounts that are coming from the cheap labor of the bots, because I do believe that the cards on marketplace are cheaper today than they were before these bot armies ever existed. And I think that's a product of the cheap labor. And I think if there was actually 400,000 humans vying to climb into gold, we wouldn't see the sort of prices that we're seeing now. And I remember in November and October of 2021, when this game was booming to its like highest peak so far, that people were constantly complaining on my channel about how cards were totally you couldn't afford them. Like, the game is for rich people, for whales. You can't get started in this thing. It's nonsense. It's stupid. I can't spend $10,000 to play in silver, and so therefore I'll never try. But then, in part, bot armies are serving to, and we see it at the end of every single rank reward season, where the prices are noticeably lower on that day after rank rewards are opened, because those bot armies, and it'll always be like firebot, bot. Like, it's just like the same account with hundreds of the same card listing on the marketplace. And so I think that's an interesting benefit to us that's really substantive, that maybe it's hard to mete out, like hard to really put a ruler to and measure, quantify. But I would presume that would be very substantial. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think it is. And then I had one more point. Card exploits hurt. Oh yeah, when you talk about the cards, these bots kind of, I forget the language you used, but like these bots are kind of stealing, or they're taking rewards that you or I would have. Well, yes and no, because in part they're taking rewards that you or I would get eventually if they were just left alone, if the assets were left alone out there and these bots weren't in the game. But I think it's so important that we draw that line where, like, I don't think it's bad that bots are here. And so I don't disagree with them getting rewards. But I do think it's wrong that they get rewards in ways that are not feasibly possible for you or I in that win exchanging way. Because, because interestingly, it's when, for instance, when Splinterlands gives out way more reward cards to the bot, let's say there's 300,000 bots, like you were kind of alluding to, if those guys are getting way more rewards than you or I, and I think this will change, by the way, this little side note, I think this is going to change dramatically when we see the new rank rewards, because I think the gold and silver and diamond, actually diamond, gold, and champion, I think are going to see way bigger rewards, disproportionate so. And I think that was going to translate into this place where the 20,000 or 100,000 accounts that are real world people who are actively investing and who are running one or two accounts are going to see this unique advantage that bots won't be able to replicate unless they actually go out and buy huge decks of cards, in which case, great, they're buying the cards. And then I think add to the ghost card nerfs, and I do think they're going to want to comply at least with that level, those levels of card ownerships. And so I think the exploit is hurting Splinterlands in a sense, because they or you might say us in a long run, but like I think they're taking cards out of the essentially the hands of Splinterlands by way of playing those games and then getting the rewards out of Splinterlands. And you might say that's you or me that could have had that if we played the game for long enough. But I don't really think that that's like a fair comparison, because we're talking, I'm already playing as much as I can. I'm already getting my rewards. My rewards aren't being stopped. Like I'm being satisfied by the level of play I'm willing to commit. If I had more time and more interest in more accounts, which I don't, then you're right, I would get more assets. And then I would get to a point where my reward cards are being diminished too rapidly for me to enjoy because of the bot armies. But right now I'm being satisfied by my level of play. So I just kind of think that although they are taking a lot of assets, they are also providing those benefits that I mentioned. And I'm not saying that means I like them. I'm not saying that means go bots. I'm also not saying that it's even on the whole mostly positive. I'm not saying that's a pretty like a tepid, warm statement on bots, really. But I'm just saying that I think when we deny or when we sidestep some of these I think significant financial contributions that they are making to the economy, because it's not true that they're not giving that they're giving nothing back to the economy. They are. Maybe it's not enough. And definitely this win trading business can be stopped and should be stopped. And I just talked about maybe one example of what they could do. But I almost feel like the idea starts to get in the average Joe's mind, well, let's just get rid of them. And again, coming back to that's not what blockchain is. That's not what decentralization is. That's not why we're here in the first place. That's not why these ideas of NFT gaming and card ownership and the sovereignty of running your own economy gained kind of momentum in the first place. Like the whole attitude that we brought to this space, or the attitude that this space brought to our minds, I guess is the way I want to say that, is that, wow, this is revolutionary. I can hold these assets and I can own them and sell them and rent them. And so I feel like to then move into that and bring the centralized authority mindset of like, okay, you, yes, you, no, you, yes, no, even if they really are purely exploitive, like those bots. So I think what I end up landing, and I want you to push back on me if you think necessary, where I end up landing is just say, well, look, the real issue is this win trading business. Let's just stop that. Like we can see one example I just gave, and I know there's others. Like, what can't we just? That seems to me to be the silver bullet. Don't you think? And maybe is there something more that you feel I'm missing, or?
No, I think we're saying the same thing actually.
Okay.
But I think we're maybe saying it differently. So I think we both agree that win trading is bad and should stop.
Yeah.
And for me, as I mentioned at the beginning of this topic, really the only other problem I see is that it's not a problem. It's just an inherent risk in the macro economy of having a large number of the player base be not human, right? But other than that, what I was really more referring to talking about the bots and their extraction and their value was more a principle thing. It's nothing more than a feeling, not a problem. It's for me to say, hey, this is probably not the ideal scenario that Matt or Aggie would have
I
envisioned.
think that's fair.
But
Yep.
we're here, and this is the reality. But I don't have to like it,
Mm,
right? So the same thing is I don't necessarily like paying taxes, but it's the rule of the land, and I'll pay my taxes. I don't have to like it.
yeah.
So it's the same. It's really more me saying that, hey, this is something that's out there. I don't necessarily agree with it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like it, but you know what they say, if you can't beat them, join them.
Mm,
And if I really wanted to do something about it, I would create my own bot farm and just print money. And
hmm
that may be something that people look at doing if they're interested. But so I think we're saying the same thing. We agree on the problems, and it was just me adding the commentary to say, hey, I really don't necessarily like this aspect of the game, but it is where we're at in the game, and it's not going to change. And that's the conclusion that I've come to.
Okay.
It means I'll still mention it as a topic because I do think it's not great. But I think it goes back to your other point when you talk about, why is win trading bad? Well, it's bad because basically what's happening, going back to your talking about the numbers and the profits and stuff like that, is if by win trading a bot can own no cards and just rent the lowest collection power
Yep.
and just field a bunch of garbage and climb to silver 3, when
Yep.
in reality they should never be able to do that. As a human player,
Yes.
you could never do it because you would
Exactly.
have to rent cards and you have to pay for it. And that's my point, is they're cheating because they're taking a bronze level deck
Yeah.
and they're getting silver 3 rewards by cheating because they're trading and they're climbing up into silver 3 when they have no business to be there.
Agreed.
And a human player with that same deck couldn't get there.
Agreed.
And that's really what the problem in a nutshell that needs to stop.
hmm
Now, I'll also say one other piece here is that the reason, going back to your comment on, we would just if we didn't have bots, we would farm the rewards ourselves and it would just be slower over time.
hmm
Well, it all goes back to my video when we talk about the print numbers being what they are, and the print numbers have accounted for the bots in the ecosystem farming and doing what they do, and that's why we have the numbers that we do.
I see.
So they're necessary because, again, if we have 4 million reward cards that we still have to farm in commons, and we've already been going at this for, what is it, 7, 8 months? I forget how long it's been already, right? We're only halfway through with the bots.
Yep.
Think about what would happen if we didn't have the bots. We'd never get through those reward cards. We just couldn't farm them fast enough as human players.
Yeah.
So they absolutely fill a function in the ecosystem like I talked about. But then the question goes back to, again, were the print numbers correct? And the answer is, if the bots are going to stick around, then yeah, they were correct because things are actually probably humming along on schedule. So and this goes back to at the end of the day, the development team, I have faith in them that they will make the right adjustments and the right changes. It's not going to happen overnight. We just identified some of these win trading issues and putting them out to the dev team just in the last week. And it'll take some time, I'm sure, for them to take that information and do something with it. I strongly believe they'll do something with it, and we'll see a change for the positive. And that's all we can hope for. And I can tell you, I have been talking to the Splinterlands dev team about it, and they're aware of it. And, I do have faith that something will be done that will be beneficial to the game and to us as players. So, we have to give them some runway to,
Yeah.
do what they do and have faith that they'll make the right decisions. At the
Yeah.
end of
To
the day.
try and actually give them the space to try and actually implement their goals or their desired solutions, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you and we're just YouTubers.
Yep.
We're not developers. We don't have the full picture. And it's obviously a lot more complex than us just pointing out a problem.
Yeah.
To actually solve the problem takes thought and planning, and you want to be conservative about it. You don't want to just implement a knee-jerk reaction that causes even more problems. So from that perspective, we've done our job. We've identified the problem, and we'll see what happens now.
Yeah. I appreciate you phrasing it that way. I definitely agree. It's like I guess there's like a degree of fervency or like a seriousness to like my pushback on what I see your view being. And possibly in part because I don't completely understand, like I don't completely see eye to eye with how you see things. But I think also, and probably more so because, like, I guess I have, what am I trying to say? Just that I'm like, that I'm so you know what it is, that I'm so passionate about this game, and that I do see that there are solutions that are possible and that are coming, and while this is a very serious situation, I just feel that it's going to, like you just said, I feel like it, when we step back and give the space that we know that they've asked for and that they're asking for, I just feel so confident that we're going to find our way through this. And then,
Yeah, none of these are game breaking
Yeah.
things at this point that we're dealing with. None of these are things that we should be, losing sleep at night about. They're things that aren't ideal,
Yes.
sure,
Yeah.
but they're not game breakers.
So we've gone longer than I thought we would. I don't know what your situation is like, but I kind of want to, if you've got like say 15, 20 minutes more, I'd love to go a little longer and try and talk about some of the validator nodes, the implications for SPS burning, for vouchers. But please, we can cut it here.
I have plenty of time. Let's go.
Okay,
Let's do it.
awesome. So yeah, I mean, we talked about the bots. We talked about the rank implications of what, some of the nerfs and that's coming with the ghost cards, and maybe how that's going to play out. But in addition to the rank reward conversation, which is coming really soon, like they said, end of May, I believe, right? The new rank rewards. Is that true?
I think they're anticipating like beginning of June. So at the end of this next season is I think what they're targeting.
And that is help me make sure I'm on page with what that will entail. That's the new ranked reward shares, as opposed to the DC per, hang on, am I saying this right? Before, as opposed to the X amount of loot chests like I'm in Champion 3 and I get 16 loot chests per quest reward. That's the current system. But now it's going to be reward shares, and you can earn X amount. You can earn almost infinite reward shares on a daily basis. But then they get harder and harder to earn as you've earned more and more within a 24-hour window. And the more you get, you get diminishing returns on your loot chest, but there's going to be a lot more loot chests. Is that a fair synopsis? Do you think I mischaracterized anything? And if I'm missing anything, please fill in the blank there.
Yeah, I think what they've told us at this point, and I believe a white paper from Matt is imminent, and from what they're saying, it's the most detailed white paper he's ever written. Cool. So it should be interesting. Yeah. But it is the focus. It's moving the daily reward quest and chest to focuses or focus points, and earning those focus points. And each of those is going to earn you a chest or chests, depending on your level. And then the value of those chests will be changing as well.
That's right.
So depending on what level you're at, whether you're at silver, gold, diamond, or champion, what's included as far as rarity, as far as gold foiled chances, as far as Chaos Legion pack chances, etc., will be changing, I think, fairly significantly.
Yes.
So all indications have been the higher you climb, the higher those percentages and the higher expected value of those focused chests are going to be. So it's an incentive again to get as high as you can with one account rather than spread across hundreds of accounts at the bronze or silver level.
Yeah.
So that's the goal, I think, is what they're trying to achieve. And it's really, it's been long overdue, and I'm very happy to see this coming.
Yeah, that's really exciting. That, especially that part about kind of the percentage increases on the extra probability of getting really significant rewards at the higher levels. That's really interesting because I think it uniquely points, it almost uniquely addresses some of the concerns around the bot armies, because they're often running at the lowest levels. And I think usually humans who only have so many hours in a day are going to run 1 or 2 or maybe 3 accounts at the highest level that they can fund. And then they're going to, like, that's the most people. Some people like me I have 8 or 9 accounts, and then I do have a few scholars that run them, but they're all humans that run them. And the idea is that we want to try and incentivize that, going deeper and deeper and deeper into investment within this game, because that actually reflects almost a human approach to a game, in the sense that a human has a finite number of hours, and therefore 1 account, 2 accounts, 3 accounts that they can run individually. And so incentivizing at the highest levels more and more and more, I think is really a genius way to grow the human investment, the actual active human people playing the game as opposed to bots. I think I'm pretty cool. I'm stoked about that.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting is this is just the first, it's kind of like a combination punch. This is just the first punch that sets us up for what's to come.
Hmm.
You know, with the wild and modern format splitting and how that changes the game, that's just around the corner.
That's right.
And then after the SPS airdrop ends, you've got SPS rewards for ranked battle rewards, which is going to be a real game changer. If you look, I had a video that I created like months ago now talking about that, the reward pool that's going to be there, the ability for the value of staking SPS, not only on yourself as a player, but on other players to get APR and rewards. These are game changing pieces. And it's honestly why when we had this kind of market chaos over the last 48 hours, one of the things that I did is personally, I went in and I scooped up cards that I needed to make myself more competitive at the level that I want to compete in. I went in and got a good deal on a Ruler of the Seas and a Unicorn Mustang and a
Nice.
Dark Juan. These are cards that I wouldn't have been able to get prior to this kind of chaos in the market. And I'm like, hey, if I'm going to make an investment right now, this is where I want to push my chips in because I want to play the game and earn these rewards to then multiply my earnings moving forward. And that's why I saw the play is recently. Now there's plenty of plays you could have done,
Yeah.
obviously, but just with the capital that I had available, that was what I was able to do. So
Just today, I was looking at the Ruler of the Seas. It's funny you mentioned that. There was a max level Ruler of the Seas for 650, and it's such a powerful card that
yeah,
and I do have that kind of money that I could do that. But I'm really feeling right now like I'm on the fence, and I'm just waiting for these in my mind. There are too many options in this game right now where I would love to just buy it all. Like honestly, I'd love to buy 1,000 Oceanuses, and there's probably how many are on there? Okay, there's 342. I'd love to buy 50 of these. There's 600 Heartclaws. I'd probably buy 100 of those. And same like a significant proportion, but not so much that I really move the market. Like if I could buy like on this right now, Jin Bilka, I'd buy all of them up to about $1.70. This full page, $1.50, 52. I'd buy the full page if I could, because I'm that confident in the price appreciation on these amazing legendary cards in the future. 4 years away, I don't care. I'll hold them until then. But then you just mentioned Ruler of the Seas, and we didn't talk about vouchers, and we haven't talked. SPS has been on discount, and
so many options.
land plots have been really cheap. Somebody bought actually Jarvie, shout out Jarvie, Peak Jarvie, like one of the owners creators of Peak Monsters. I saw on Hive Engine he bought a tract of land for 10 grand. Guy, like there's so many crazy options, and I want them all.
Yep. And this is what is very interesting about the game that's, I think, so unique is that there's opportunities to, build assets and accumulate assets. And if you have a long-term vision for the game, there's really not a bad option. It's just really what is the maximum EV or the most, return, because land should return well, rental cards should do well, these discounts on Untamed and beta cards should do well. These are all great opportunities. And in the current crypto market, there's not a lot of great opportunities out there
Totally.
right now. So, and this has been, again, you have to have the long-term vision, because if you got into the game, let's say in January, and you've been scooping up all these assets, you're probably looking at me like I have three eyes and saying, what are you talking about? I'm losing money left and right. My value keeps going down. But again, if you look at where the game is going and where it should go, and if you have the vision, you see all of these as accumulation options, and they should bear fruit. And if things play out like we might anticipate, these are all going to be great options at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think so too. And there was something I wanted to say there, but I lost track of it because I was trying to grab my next thought, trying to hold on to two things at one time. But just while we were mentioning the some of the investment options, and we talked just a moment ago, like just briefly glossing over vouchers. Vouchers were at 91 cents yesterday. Vouchers, I think, really soon, because of the burn mechanism and the validator node license sales, could be worth, at least have that buoying force, or that kind of almost I wouldn't say hard floor, but you know what I mean? There's like some support mechanisms at a very reasonable level. Like right here, this is the prices of the various tranches, and a $3 voucher pricing is the Splinterlands is accepting them at that rate. I have heard you say on your channel, and I agree, you're right. That doesn't mean that they'll be technically sold for $3 on the marketplace. They might be sold for less than that, because this is the price Splinterlands is accepting them for, which will create something of a floor, but it's not going to be a hard floor where because some people won't want nodes, and so they'll bring their vouchers into Hive Engine and they'll sell them for like 250 or something like that. But that to me is a buoying positive, almost like another way to say it is like in the equities world, I think people often say like tailwind, which is like a pushing force on your investment. So like as a voucher holder, which they were selling for 91 cents yesterday, and I think they're like $1.10 or something right now if we quickly check. But like I think in the very near future they could be selling on Hive Engine for 250 or so, and that's just one. They're at $1.10 right now. So again, just one more example of, and these things are being given away to people who have assets. It's like look at all the ways we can earn with this game right now. It's like right now DEC tournaments are killing it. I was talking to Drabs the other day. Shout out to Drabs. He hit up the SplinterlandsTV channel while I was there, and he was talking about how he's investing $4 of Hive every week on rental cards, and he selectively rents cards using peak monsters, and then when he picks the best army, he can go into the certain tournaments, and he can invest very little and win around, I think it was he said he was buying $4 worth of renting $4 worth of cards, and he was getting $17 to $45 worth of SPS back. And so that's like a potentially an 11x on his investment, and he's doing it every single week. And so these opportunities, they just abound in so many ways, and soon land will be actually released, and then be producing farmable assets, those in-game tokens and whatnot. And like you said, the rank battle wild versus modern, and how that's going to duplicate and actually double the rewards that are available to the player base. It's just such an exciting time. But you're right, you have to have that long-term vision and not be like, well, it's going down for the last couple months. Like, it's like, but where's it going to be in 4 years? Like, are you willing to be that patient? Because I think going full circle to our beginning of our conversation, where you asked, what was it like before? And like, how does that compare to today? That's the whole thing. Knowing then when I was getting started in January 2019, I knew that it wasn't going to be in 2 or 3 weeks that this was going to be life-changing. I knew that if I was to play this regularly, investing my time and attention over a long time horizon, that it would reward me meaningfully. And it would seem trivial at first, but they would snowball in value, because you're getting paid in these non-fungible tokens that, while they might be priced at 1 cent or 2 cents, are actually worth, they have an intrinsic value greater than that, because they're limited in number and deflationary in nature. And so all of a sudden it feels like you're getting next thing, nothing. And then all of a sudden, within like a 1 month period, my assets went from like, I think $5,000 or $10,000 US to like 50 or 100,000 US. It was kind of, I want to say early August, maybe late July, up to maybe late August. And guys, if you want to go back check me, you can check my videos in that summer of 2021. I remember my assets were exponentially growing, and I was doing videos on it. And it's like, I think that's going to happen again, maybe to a lesser extent, but to still a life-changing amount. But it's going to be that deferred reward that's going to happen within a month or two when that cycle begins again, whether it's 4 years away, or whether it's even, maybe there's an upturn coming. I actually don't know, but I'm so confident that one upturn is coming that I just continue to hold my chips here confidently.
Yeah, and I think what's great about that is the question that you have to ask yourselves if you're watching this video and you're asking yourself, is Splinterlands, the game for me? If you like the game, then play the game for the game. Obviously, it's play and earned. But secondly, if you think that it can be meaningful, like you mentioned, as a life-changing experience, then you have to ask yourself, can what happened with Untamed happen again? And if the answer to that question is there's a high probability or a more than 50% chance probability that it could happen again, then you're probably in the right spot, because look at all of the things that the dev team has on the roadmap to make that happen. There's literally a half dozen things that aren't just pie in the sky things that might happen 2 years down the road. These are things that are being actively worked on and being planned to be delivered just in the next weeks and months. So it's real, and like you said, it could happen, in 2 years, it could happen in 4 years, or it could happen in 2 months. We just don't know. And I want to also go back to, the other thing you mentioned was talking about Drabs and his journey with the tournaments and how he's doing well and killing it there. This just speaks to the robustness of this game, and not only from a playing perspective, how you can play tournaments and enjoy playing that, but how you can make it profitable for you. It's just one journey in the game. You can rent cards to the bots, you can play tournaments, you can card flip, you can do ranked battles. There's myriads of ways that you can focus your time and attention on to earn in this game. You can do one of them really well, you can do a mix of all of them. It's really up to you. And it's going to get even more complex and even better when land is released. We haven't even talked about the impact of the card circulation on land and how that will be essentially a consumer of card and collection power moving forward, and all the DeFi aspects of that introducing to the game and complexity. So I come prior to Splinterlands, I played like mobile games on my phone and stuff and just wasted time and money on that. And one of the challenges with that was just the games, after you got past their initial, whatever you're doing in the game to build up your stuff and play the game, you got to a point, if you play the game long enough, where there just wasn't enough interesting stuff to do in that game. There wasn't enough game modes or new stuff happening that could really captivate your attention, let alone you couldn't earn anything from the game, right? But that being said, what we have here in Splinterlands is there's just so much coming, and there's already a lot to do. And with the ranked rewards being the next chapter on encouraging more play of the game, not just do your 5 daily quests and be done, or the rewards aren't worth it, just rent out your deck. They're changing things to make the game a better game. And that's important. And so I think we have to look at that and think the future is going to be pretty bright. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing way to maybe end it. And because I do think one of in this particular moment, there's so much anxiety and nervousness I see constantly, like what's going on with the market and like what's going on with the cards, and whether Chaos Legion packs ever sell out, and is this bot problem going to kill it, and it just feels like there's so much nervousness. As much as in October, November of 2021, I felt there was such an exuberance that was unsustainable. And I would say I remember competing and arguing with my commenters, my channel, and they saying things like DEC was at 2 cents, and they were saying, you should buy DEC. Why are you not holding DEC? And I'm like, guys, like, this is a stable coin. Like, what are you talking about? Why? And there'd be this argument of like, don't you know what it does for you with regards to SPS? And it's like, yes, I do, but don't you know the history of DEC and how it used to be below its peg? And how this airdrop, while it seems like it's going to last a long, you know what I mean? Like, it just feels like there have been moments in history where it's been so negative, so positive, and you can't tell people otherwise. And I tell people in those moments, like, take a deep breath. And now here in this moment it's been recently a lot of chaos in the marketplace, and I just want to, like, hopefully this video is, at the end of the day, take a deep breath, guys. Like, this is a long game. We're going to be here. You're going to be doing your videos. I'm going to be doing mine. We're going to be spending our time and attention in this amazing blockchain-based video game. And we're going to be in 4 years, in 5 years, I'm certain anyone who's taking this seriously now is going to have a surprising amount of in-game wealth. And I really feel strongly about that. And so maybe we can land it there, but I'll give you some time to, like, anything you want to talk about, any sort of, if you want to pitch the channel again or whatever it is you want to close with, I'll just give you the last word.
Yeah, well, thanks, Dwayne, for this opportunity. Obviously, if you're interested in some of the Splinterlands content that I've published, you can check it out at Tales from the Crypt Mancer on YouTube. Definitely give us a follow over there and stay in touch. And then, yeah, obviously, thanks for having me on today, Dwayne. It's been awesome, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming by, making the time, and for staying extra well beyond what we really talked about. Thank you very much. And I'll make sure I'll link the channels in the YouTube description. Guys, make sure you sub the channel. Are you above 1,000 right now?
No, not yet.
Dude, that's wild. You need to be like, honestly, I watch the channel every day. So guys, come on, get over there. There's 6,000 people subbing me. Like let's get them above 5,000 tomorrow. Let's do it.
Awesome.
K-Tails, I appreciate you, dude. Thank you very much. And guys, thank you for your time and attention. As always, have an amazing day. God bless. Bye for now.